Hi everyone, how you doing today? This is Rafael, your career counselor, and welcome to another episode of Career Chats brought to you by the Career Center. Today we have a special guest. We have Professor Tommy Reyes, who teaches here as a professor full-time, and he's a professor of architect and drafting, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome Tommy. So thank you for being here. Welcome to one of our Career Chat episodes, and today we're going to talk about careers dealing with architect and drafting, and Professor Reyes is going to share his expertise and insights to the career field of architect and drafting. So let's start with that.
Let's do it.
So Professor Reyes, just some questions about architect and the careers. So far, what do you think is like the job outlook or the job projection for students who want to get into the career field of architect or drafting? Can you share a little bit on that a little bit?
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely going to grow between 2020, 2030.
Okay.
There's a huge push in being carbon neutral.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of our designs and stuff like that, we want to get carbon neutrality. Architects across the United States have agreed by 2030, we want all our designs to be carbon neutral.
Oh, okay.
The architecture community is really trying to tackle a lot of these climate change problems.
Yeah, okay.
And so you'll see a lot of different sectors pop up.
Nice.
There's LEED certification that anyone can get. You can take an online class, take the exam, and you'll be LEED certified. There's what we call green jobs.
Oh, green. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, having to deal with sustainability and stuff like that. So that LEED certification is part of that.
Nice.
And there's tons of other jobs that you can get with a degree in architecture.
Okay.
That's just to name a few.
Yeah.
So it's not just, there's a lot of misconceptions about, I get a degree in architecture, I have to be an architect.
Right.
Not necessarily. There's so many other things and so many other avenues that you can get into.
Okay.
You can definitely become an architect. You can be part of the design process. There's some architects that are good with people, and they end up being the consultant part of the job.
Yeah.
And then there's some architects that just like to, go solo and just do them. And they do it all. They're the consultant, they're the designer, they do all the work that's needed in order to get a permit to build.
Nice.
And sometimes they even manage the construction part of the project. There's a lot of hats that are unspoken about.
Sure.
Most common people really don't necessarily grasp what's all involved in architecture.
Okay.
And so, with that being said, architecture is going to grow a little bit, but it's these other parts of architecture that are related, super related, that are going to grow even further. That whole bill that passed with the infrastructure, that's going to provide a lot of jobs.
Nice.
And so, I think once we start tackling climate change aggressively, that's when things are going to really start opening up.
And Professor Reyes, so some of those job openings you're describing there, are there other unique ones out there? Like I know there's a push for green and green energy, and sustainability, and how architect and drafting relates to those new fields, which are fantastic.
Yeah.
But is there other creative or unique opportunities for people who have a degree in architect or drafting?
Absolutely. I can tell you this much. This is my second semester here at Citrus, but I've taught part-time at Fullerton College for a long time. So I've had students that got into set design, like Netflix.
Oh, and by sets, like the background sets of the
movie sets and the sets for sitcoms and stuff like that. They need someone that knows how to design that. And so, as an architect, you can do that.
Yeah.
Movies. There's not just Netflix. Hulu, Amazon. Like they have their own thing going on, as well as the major movie sets. So that's one little niche that someone can get into. I've had students that got into architecture, really understood architecture, and got into real estate because they know a lot about design.
Oh, okay. So
and they can really sell it.
Okay, that makes
so
sense.
they do architecture and they do real estate.
Okay.
So real estate's their little side hustle, but
Right.
they eventually want to grow into becoming a developer. And that's why they want to really understand real estate.
Okay, so we're talking real estate opportunities, creative opportunities, like the studio example, where like studios develop like these background sets, and architects have a feel for that design concept.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
big time.
nice.
And there's all kinds of things like acoustical engineer. The Disney Concert Hall in downtown LA was,
right.
they hired a major, like the best acoustical engineer in the world. He's from Japan. His name escapes me, but architects can get into that. Historic preservation. The way I like to explain architecture is it's a pop-up history book of what our civilization, through the test of time. You look at the ancient pyramids, right? That's history. What the Greeks did, what the Romans did, the Mesoamericans with Machu Picchu and Tenochtitlan. And so it's all these things that we preserve because it's part of our human history. And so that's another niche that people can get into. Like when I have a former student that just got into historic preservation. There's a lot of things that when you do historic preservation, you have to abide by the building codes, if there was any, from the date it was built.
Oh, so from that time frame, you have to look at what was allowable, and then you have to work with those parameters?
Yeah, so like windows, for example. 100 years ago, like carpenters built windows, and they put the glass pane, and then they added the other framing parts of the windows. You have to do it just like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so if you want to historically, like, you can't add double pane windows, so it can reduce energy costs. No, we have to restore it to the way it was. Yeah. So I've had students that got into landscape architecture.
Okay.
In fact, a former student of mine, called him up to see how he was doing, and he told me he got into landscape architecture. I was like, really? Turns out when he went to go look for work during the pandemic, there was nothing. But his dad had a landscaping company, so he went to work for his dad, and then clients would start asking for particular designs, and he knew all the software. He had all the software to do it, so he's like, let me draw something up, and that's how it began. And now he's making over $250,000 a year by
really
himself.
Good. That's really good,
and with only a 2-year degree.
Okay, I was wondering about that. So is it possible to, with some of these careers you're describing, is it possible for students to venture into these great careers with a 2-year degree, or do you think a bachelor's degree will provide more career opportunities?
So here's how I describe it. It's a skill set.
Okay.
You take the time to develop these skill sets, you're gonna get work.
Okay.
And I like to use like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant as examples.
Sure.
They didn't necessarily have to go to college to be the greatest in the NBA.
Right. Yes.
They put in work.
They put in work. Agreed.
So that's what I say to all my students. Okay. You got to put in the work. You got to develop these skill sets. Because if you can't prove that you through a portfolio or you can't prove that you have these skill sets, who's going to hire you?
Right. Makes sense.
And so that's one of my main tips is put in the work to develop the skill sets, develop an amazing portfolio, and work will come.
And is it safe to say that the curriculum that you teach, even if a student has no idea or experience with architect or drafting, your curriculum helps them establish or enhance or extract the development of those skill sets?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. And when I went to school for architecture, I knew nothing about architecture. I knew nothing about construction. Okay. But what I did know is that I noticed that architecture combined a lot of my passions. Okay. I like a lot of technical stuff. I like a lot of software things. To me, when I draft plans, it's like I'm playing a computer game, like Minecraft or Roblox or something like that. It feels like that, right? And then it's very technical. It's very precise. I like that. But it's also very artistic. I like that too. I'm very artistic. Yeah. And so it's one of those careers where if you're very analytical, very artistic, like you, I guess what I heard it described is before, you have left brain people, right brain people. Yeah. Well, architects can be both.
Okay.
And everything in between.
Nice.
Right. So we have architects that are very technical. They love the devils in the details type people, right? Yeah. And we need those people.
Yeah.
And then we have the architects that are people. They sit there and have a conversation, understand what the client wants, what the client needs, yes, and interpret it into a design. We need those people as well.
Okay.
And then another thing that architects get into is they have like little side projects.
Yes.
We're so creative that we need another creative outlet, and so there's a lot of architects that have that design furniture. That the Disney Concert Hall, for example, the architect that did that, his name is Frank Gehry.
Yeah.
He has a line of jewelry.
Oh, interesting. So he uses his skill, like you said, his talents, to interest him to do that as a hobby or
and that's
a gig.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, okay. that's his little side hustle,
okay,
right? And I hate to call it that, but I want to make it in relatable terms, but
yeah,
that's pretty much it. And you find that a lot of architects do that. There's another architect that I really like. His name is Santiago Calatrava. He's out of Spain. He's also a structural engineer, but he's also an artist. He has works of his art and sculptures traveling around the world. And so it's just one of those things where we need to create, otherwise we get irritable.
Yeah.
Right? It's one of those things that we just kind of have to get out of us. The thing about our curriculum, the thing about any architecture curriculum is once you learn how to design, you can design anything.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We teach you how to research. We teach you how to analyze the research and develop from that research. You get into some conceptual stuff and then fine tune it along the way. The design process is, I like to call it experimentation.
Yeah.
You just kind of like, hey, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this, let's try that. I've had students where they try and submit just their first design and that's it. I'm like, that's not how design works.
Sure.
I kind of give you a heads up.
In those examples you're describing, Professor Reyes, in your classes, do you see the students feed off each other, like their projects? Like, do they get creative amongst each other because they see what others are doing and there's collaboration going on and things of that nature?
Yes. So that's a culture that we cultivate.
Oh, okay.
We make sure that everyone shows their work and everyone weighs in on it.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And it's not to insult the person; it's just to make them better.
Sure, make them grow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we in our program we do it. We make sure that you get constructive criticism, in the most polite way. We don't want to beat people down.
Sure.
And it's always posed as this is to get you better. And students receive it well. They thank everyone for the critiques. They take their notes, and they make their adjustments, and their designs get better and better and better. And then with that, they help each other out. And so we try and pair people up that have an extreme amount of skills with people that are just coming in.
Like a mentor tip.
Without
calling it that, but
pretty much. It's like a buddy system where we have somebody kind of taking the person under the wing and showing them the ropes and getting them up to speed real quick. And then that way their architecture, their creativity just really, really blossoms. Because a lot of times is when you don't spend the time to learn the software, learn the techniques, and you can't be as creative as you want to be because you're trying to learn everything else.
You get locked in.
You get locked in. You're trying to learn the software. You're trying to learn how to do things right and understanding why things are what. And so that's why we have this buddy system going on. We make sure that, because it can be overwhelming.
Sure.
It can be overwhelming. And the workload for architecture students it matches up there with trying to become a doctor.
Yeah.
The sleepless nights, we've tell students eventually you might have a sleepless night if you don't manage your time right. And so we talk about time management. We talk about putting off things that aren't going to necessarily get you closer to your goals. Sure. A lot of our students, they delete their social media.
Good. Okay.
And they open it back up during the summer or during the breaks, and
just to concentrate,
just so they can focus, concentrate, and develop their skills. And and I tell them, if architecture is your jam, it's going to be your livelihood.
Yes.
You might want to focus on it.
And those skills that you're teaching them in that approach is going to transfer into the workforce.
Absolutely.
Because when you go to the workforce, there's timelines, there's deadlines, there's potentially millions of dollars at stake. So there's a lot of pressure. So from that correlation, it makes sense to apply those principles now, right?
Yeah. Okay. And that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a base of students that are always wanting to learn, because everything's always changing. How we build things and the different materials that come out that are lighter, better, stronger, more efficient with energy. We're always studying. No matter if you get into becoming a lawyer or a doctor, it's the same thing.
Sure,
it's the same
evolves.
thing. It always evolves. You always have to keep up, and you always have to maintain that license. Once you get that license, you have to continue to study. It's part of that, and pretty much any licensed profession requires that as well.
Yeah.
And so we try and prepare them for that. What we like to do is we use a very Socratic method of asking them questions, and then getting them to think, and asking more questions and diving deeper into a lot of the concepts that we're teaching them. And then we also have a philosophy of learn by doing.
Right.
Here's your project.
Try it.
Try and figure it out. Yeah. We'll give you tips and tricks. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it, but we want to see what you can come up with. Yeah. And we slowly build that confidence, because there's a lot of confidence issues when it comes to design. We've never designed anything before. So we kind of, so like our first semester students, we kind of hold their hands. Second semester, we like, all right, let's see what you got. And then, that second year, first semester, second semester, you're like, all right, y'all know this now. Let's see what you got.
Dig in more now.
Like, bring it. Yeah. And then, in that second year, first semester, second semester, we like to foster competition. All right, let's see who's got the biggest, baddest. Yeah. Yeah. Because the competition brings out the best in people. Yeah. And not that their grade is reliant on who wins or what. It's just more of a, let's elevate everybody up to bring them at their best, to bring that A game.
Yeah, and that's good to develop that skill, because when they apply for a job and they want to demonstrate their best work to get hired, so then having that mentality of putting a quality, competitive piece of work together, all those are transferable career skills that eventually going to transfer to the workforce.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. Or if you're bidding for a contract and you want to put your best foot forward,
right?
You're going to have to compete against other architects who also are submitting the same.
Exactly. Or similar design.
Yeah. So it makes total sense how you guys do that.
Yeah.
Perfect. So all that translates to the career.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And we make them present. Get them practicing. I had students super shy, super timid, looks like they've never stepped out of their house because they're so scared.
Sure.
And I just let them know, hey, just present. Yeah. And I have the class, before I have them present, what I have the class do is I'll have them say, name off a few things that are great about presentations. Yeah. What people do that are great about presentations. Now let's inversely, let's look at what not to do.
Yeah.
Right. Twiddle your thumbs, or
sure.
Just stare at your presentation and not even look at your audience.
Yeah.
So it's things like that I let them. Yeah. Because like I tell them, like, even the untrained eye can see someone screwing up here.
Of course. Right. Of course. Right.
And I was like, we're not here we're here to make you better. Yeah. And so I understand that your first presentation isn't necessarily going to be your best.
Yeah.
And so I have the class critique based off of what they said was good, what they said was, okay, you need to work on. And so I have them pose a response to, I have two students respond to each presenter. the first response is what they did well.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you did well. Just name one thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to overwhelm them with 20 different things they did well, and then 20 things they didn't do well. Right? So just one. And then from two different people and myself, if I see something that I really like, oh, you did really good on this. Nice. And then there's inversely, we discuss. I have them have a response with what could they work on, and I pose it like that, and students really love it. It's amazing after a semester how polished they get.
Yeah, they tune up.
And they really tune up because they practice. I was like, it's a skill set. You just practice. Yeah. And you'll get better. Yeah. And at the end of the semester, they're thanking me because they have other presentations in other classes.
Sure. Like, it all transfers.
And they're like, thank you so much, Professor Reyes. Yeah. Like, had I not did your presentations, I would have totally bombed in another class.
And the more it transfers, the more they can apply those skills to eventually to the career field, the workforce they're going to get into.
Yeah, and as architects, you deal with people. You deal with clients. You deal with other professionals and engineers, whether it's a structural engineer, mechanical engineer. Right. Geosoils technical engineer, and then not only that, but the cities and the different municipalities. You've got to submit these plans. You've got to develop these relationships. Yeah. And so, by doing that, have them present often and mingling with one another and getting feedback from one another, we're showing them, in a way, how to build relationships and how to maintain.
And you're right. It feels like architects very cultural driven, meaning like it's global, and all these cultures have their own architect style. But to your point about connecting and working with others, and you're gonna come across all these different entities of different cultures that represent architect, even if you're in the States or go abroad. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. And I mean that's one thing that we do pride ourselves on. We are not necessarily localized.
Okay, good.
We can go global. Yeah. In fact, one of the professors, he has a project in Dubai. Okay. So he had to fly out to Dubai, teach online while he was in Dubai, and then, and it's cool. It's one of those professions where you don't have to stay in one area. Right. You can, when
career expand.
Exactly, and you learn about other cultures. You learn how to appreciate it. What I tell my students, I even told my son this. I was like, look, buddy, we have an entire planet full of people, right? And we, as a species, figured out how to survive on pretty much every inch of this planet that we have. And out of that survival, we've cultivated cuisine, language, beliefs, values, architecture, art, everything that we have.
Correct. Yes.
Right? And we were all pretty much given the same ingredients.
Right.
Just cook them up a little differently.
Right.
Right? And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Look, everybody has an empanada."
Right.
And he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, look at Chinese food. Doesn't that look like an empanada?" Yeah. I was like, "In Ireland, that's called a pasty."
Yeah.
I was like, over here, it's called a Hot Pocket.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I was like, everybody has, that one comfort food or that one comfort soup when you're sick. And so, and we all have the same ingredients. We just use them differently.
Right. That's a good mindset to it. And if you had to give another professor as another practical career advice potentially to students to get into that workforce, into the careers of architect and drafting, what do you think is another one that you could zero in on and give advice to a future student looking to get into that workforce?
Aside from building a strong portfolio, practical experience.
Okay.
I would advise students, especially like first semester students, go job shadow.
Oh, okay.
It's free.
Yeah.
Okay. All you have to do is knock on some doors and ask. And that's another thing I tell students. It's easy to delete an email from someone you don't know.
Right.
It's harder to say no to a face with someone who wants something.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to help this person out who is trying to get into a career field that you love and enjoy.
And that'll help them develop their network, right?
That's okay. It works twofold.
Yeah.
So they can gain a mentor, they can build their network.
Yes.
And so the more job shadows you can do and get your face out there and put it out there in the universe that this is what I want, this is what I'm going after, the universe is going to respond in kind.
Yeah.
And so we do that in our classes. We make them go job shadow.
Is that job shadowing? Did you get credit for a little bit, or is it part of assignment based, or is it?
It's an assignment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it forces a student, but in a good way.
Yeah.
To get out there, network, and knock on doors, like you're saying, to start developing that networking process, or that ability to talk to people, communicate, and look them in the eye, like you're saying,
exactly,
and ask him or her, like, okay, this is what I want to get into. What are your thoughts and opinions? Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
And I've provided them a list of different questions that they could potentially ask. Okay. Don't ask them all. Just cherry pick the ones you want. So and I get it. Some students are terrified.
Yeah.
And so that's why I came up with this list of questions.
Yeah.
Just pick the ones you really want and just go with those. I've typed up questions about, what is it like in the day of life of an architect? Walk me through your day, type stuff. And then inversely, like, walk me through your personal life. Like, how do you balance it?
Right. That's important too for when you're in the workforce.
Exactly. Yeah. And I let students know, like, if you want to have a family, ask them how they do it.
Right.
Because that's important too. If you want to create this life balance, work-life balance, like, you don't know what you don't know. And so I make sure that they ask these questions they're more meaningful.
Yeah. And I like how Architect does that thing, because a lot of programs or majors don't necessarily expose or introduce the students to do that. But it sounds like in Architect, in your field, in drafting, it's a very professional track major where you have to have that ability to knock on doors and volunteer or network and intern or shadow what you want to do in the future for exposure. Okay.
Yeah. And I recommend all this stuff to every major. Like, this is just good things to learn.
Yes, it is.
When I tell students, if you're going to apply for a job, have like 10 of them lined up. Yes. Save the best for last. Save the one that you really want for last, so you can practice these interviews.
Yes, that's a great strategy.
Yeah. Right? Because that first interview is going to suck.
Rocky.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah. You're right, with more experience. Yeah.
You get to your 8th interview, you're going to be a pro. And by the time you get to that last one, the one that you really want, you're polished. These are a lot of conversations we have with our students, as well as, in fact, we started an architecture club. And
nice.
We got tasked from Hillside Church in LA, and we also partnered up with Cal State LA to create a mobile shower for homeless people. So we have this trailer that normally you would put in like ATVs and motorcycles. Totally. We're converting that into 2 shower units. It's going to use solar power to heat up the water, and we're going to use electrical pumps and electrical heaters, electrical heaters to heat up the water and provide showers to the homeless. Give them some dignity, and hopefully get them confident enough to just pick themselves up. And right now we're partnering up with the Veterans Club because we need help with mobilizing and solicitation for towels and soaps and shampoos, so we can get,
And when students do that, it develops a humbleness, right? So when you get into the career, they bring that skill with them too, having that ability to humbleize and humanize sometimes part of the work.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I was. This project I stumbled across, and I'm thinking that this is what we got to do. We got to give them real projects, get their hands dirty, get out there, and it really showcases and it provides a value in what design's all about. Right. You have a plan of attack when you build, and that's what we do as architects. We make sure we create spaces for particular things, like this office right here. was very well thought out.
Right.
Right? This entire floor was well thought out, right? And locations of restrooms and elevators and stairs and, certain amount of windows so you can get natural light so you don't necessarily have to use electricity all day, every day.
So it's like this niche that you developed that you had to observe, right?
Yeah, these are all the things that, through our curriculum, we help students develop. A consciousness of energy, a consciousness of the human experience, and a consciousness of societal experiences as well. So we just want to make sure that when we do provide, what we provide, it's valuable. It's not going to waste anyone's time.
Yeah, exactly.
We kind of just want to streamline the skills that you need to get you going. Can you start with a 2-year degree? Absolutely. Can you get licensed with a 2-year degree? Absolutely. The state changed that, I want to say like 7, 8 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, don't quote me on that one. But it's been about that long. And do you have to go to, a university? Not necessarily. Do we promote it? Absolutely.
Fantastic.
The more knowledge you get, the better. Yeah. And do we help students transfer letters of recommendation? Help them do their portfolio? Yeah, we get them all ready. We get them all ready for that. And I tell them this: you tell me your dream, and we'll make that come true. But you got to put in. You got to meet us halfway and put in the work.
Right. Yeah. You put in the work. We put in the work, and together we come as a team and we move you through. Professor Reyes, this is amazing information. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and energy, and our students are lucky to have you as a professor.
I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you want to close up with, or just if students have any questions, can they come track you down?
Yeah, come hit me up.
Okay.
I'm in PC 306.
Okay.
If you want a little more information, you're welcome to come through at any time, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
Okay.
Or hit me up with my email.
Okay.
treyes@Citrus College.
treyes@citruscollege.edu. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Professor Reyes. That's fantastic.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening in. We enjoyed you being here, and we want to thank again Professor Reyes for his time. Thank you, everybody.